Just a minute, ladies and gentlemen. I think something is happening.
The collapse in economy. I'm going to go off on my soapbox here for a little bit because everybody's like blaming Biden. And then everybody's like blaming Trump. And I'm just all like, coronavirus just happened. Uh, that was under Trump's watch, but they all disagreed with it. I don't blame Trump. Biden comes in after Russia happened. I don't blame Biden. It's like the economy is scary. Frankly, I got to
Well,
say, the
we
economy
have
is
the greed
scary.
factor.
Yeah.
We have the greed factor because we have the fear factor, and we have everybody saying, "Well, look, I'm not making it," so they're going to charge more. And these are the business owners, and of course, there's even talk like, why are the prices not going down when we've already added to the fuel reserves, which is being pumped up out of our environment, which is hugely toxic to our environment, but nobody even looks into that. It's great that we're doing electric vehicles and everything, but no, the president, our governments have very little to do with this greed factor, and corporations have taken over things, and they bought in hospitals, they bought water rights. People should look around and see that. Guess what? Everything got bought out from underneath us, and we're in deep shit. Period. And if we're going to allow these mega monopoly, and I mean the monopolies are just left and right now because the government is not doing their job because they're just trying to raise money for the next damn election. And they're not, they don't even write their own bills anymore. The business of government is no longer functional. There's greed and corporate catastrophe occurring. We have supply shortages. Guys, when are you going to wake up? You cannot run business as usual. We are already across the point of no return, and people need to do something about this and not celebrate, business as usual. We cannot do it. We're already in a global warming crisis beyond their wildest dreams, and it's only going to get worse. And we've seen the evidence of this happening year after year, cycle after cycle. Here we go. And the gas crisis is just one of the inconveniences we're about to suffer. And there's going to be more.
From our conversation earlier about the weather changes and the other planetary system, you're saying we're having a global warming crisis. I mean, what can we do about it? Given if what you're saying is the case, what could we do about the global warming?
Well, the only thing that people can do, and if you've seen any of the old crazy movies from 2012 to Knowing to all this other stuff,
I watched them all.
Literally, now if we look back at the last cycle, the Minoans and the Mycenaeans disappeared, and there was global change, global warming. There's a vast cycle that shows up on ice cores from 1750 all the way to 1635, 90 some odd year period of time, whatever. Somebody will yell at me for my math, but anyway, the small period of time where we went through this huge double global warming, because the first one was really bad, and then there was a small one a few years later. And we're going to literally, in most cases, have climate change where people are going to have to move, and they're going to have to go to regions that will support life, and we might see excruciating extremes from both cold, flooding, dry, you name it, everything. And we'll get back to, we're not in Kansas anymore, and we're going to see California is going to be dry for the next 10 to 15 years, and so everything is going to get worse than it already is, including fires and no water, and they're not going to grow our crops anymore, and then we're going to see more expensive. So people really need to get in their home gardens, and of course everybody's flocking to Montana like crazy. There is no houses available in Montana. You cannot buy a house here.
We're having the same problem here in Oregon, and my wife and I are actually climate refugees. We actually moved out of California and moved to north because of the drought and the heat and the fires.
Right, and then there's talk about that, and of course I don't try to swim in the gossip, but they're talking about the new standard living region being somewhere in northern South America, where we live in the same latitude, longitude region of where we used to be. So an Earth tip, and we're still wobbling, and we're still having a currents where one day the moon is deep in the south, and then the moon is way up in the north, and that of course has to do with planetary push and Earth wobble and all this other stuff, because the magnetospheres of each of these larger planets will push us and tip us farther on our side, and then all of a sudden the moon will move because Earth does, or the moon doesn't move, Earth does. We've always seen the same view of the moon. And when the
Tidal
moon is
lock.
tipped, it's not moon, it's us. So, and then there are a lot of people need to remember that because they don't. And these asteroids are going to cause problems from heck too. You know, I mean, we might even see more, Kansas tornado scenarios where you see entire regions just ripped away by storms. And if you look anywhere in like South America right now, they're having nonstop flooding all over, and Australia is flooding big time. And China went through that last year, and they're still having issues weather-wise. And of course, Russia is freezing their butts off because they've had the Arctic pole, and the pole value is moving back and forth pretty bad too, and increased in speed to where the actual North Pole has been moving for many years, and that of course has to do with the planetary tip and the extra second sun. And people have to take into account we've got that second big ass star behind ours, and there's evidence of some major coronal holes coming around this week. And the back blow and side blow CMEs have been off to the left and right a little bit, but more over the left. So I think separation is coming or occurring as we speak. So it's going to be a very interesting next 6 months for sure, and it's going to be just wow. And and I keep telling people, if you have a roof on your house, be very happy, because there's so many people. Like, look at that. Ask all those people in Louisiana. 2-3 days ago, they just lost their roofs, and it wasn't expected at all, and that thing ran all the way up to Tennessee. And the storm patterns, they're the same. And if you look at the rotational storms over the top of our pole regions and everything, and you count the low pressure systems, we have a boiling nightmare of an atmosphere that we've never had before. And for literally the last 6 or 7 years, all direction on the weather on both of the regions of the hemispheres are going the same direction, which has never occurred in my known history. It used to be our weather in the northern hemisphere went one way, and then in the southern hemisphere, the weather went the other way. And that's always been normal. And as of about 5 or 6 years ago, that stopped. So now, because I believe we're laying on our side, I think our weather is skidding in one direction on both hemispheres. But so everything's changed, and we have to view this as this is not going to be business as usual, and we have to prepare for that. And I, of course, am not financially able to do anything about moving or anything like that. So, I have to make the best with what I have and start learning. And if the shit hits the fan, which it does every cycle.
I came here to give you these facts. But if you threaten to extend your violence, this earth of yours will be reduced to a burned-out cinder.